What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got an awesome offering from Benchmade. One of few that I can honestly say in a long time that I'm really excited about. This is the Benchmade 560BK-1 Freek, or as the knife community has so lovingly and accurately labeled it, the Super Freek. We'll talk about that here in a sec. Before we get too far, let's do some measurements and size comparisons. Overall length of this pretty large knife is going to be about 8.5 inches. You can see there. Sorry about the reflectivity on the tape. How about the blade length? Let's move her over here real quick. Overall blade length looks like cutting edge is definitely about 3.5 inches. The total blade length is close to 3.75, not quite, probably 3.65 overall. So this is a large knife, definitely. How about weight? Let me grab my scale here. Make sure that we have zeroed out on the scale. Okay, we'll go ahead and close her here real quick. Overall weight, a surprising 4.3 ounces. Let's double check that. 4.27 ounces, so a little over 4.25. Really impressive for a knife this big, and this, has an air of hard use about it. We'll talk about that some more. How about some size comparisons here? Let's compare it against the Ontario Rat Model 1. Ontario Rat 1 coming in at 8.6 inches. You can see these two are very similar in overall length, and actually there's some general shape similarities there as well. Some PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. The PM2 is actually slightly shorter than the Super Freek. How about the Benchmade Griptilian? That's the one that I'm excited to show people. The Benchmade Griptilian coming in at 8 inches overall. So to me, and we'll talk more about this as well, to me the Freek or the Super Freek is a Benchmade Griptilian on steroids, especially the Super Freek. And last but not least, how about the Spyderco Delica? Spyderco Delica coming in at about 7 inches overall. Anyways, so when I saw the original Freek for the first time, I was like, and I was compelled by it. And then they went over the handle materials, and one of the materials, I know there's either the handle is made out of G10 and the inlay is FRN, or part of it's FRN, or it's vice versa. I did not like that part of it was FRN. I just didn't like it, and I still have that weird bias against FRN, and I know I need to get over that, but I just wasn't interested. And I had heard people talk about the Freek being like the new, bigger Benchmade Griptilian, and that the weight was really good and the blade shape was really good, and I just wasn't interested in it. And then I saw this version, which is CPM M4. Go ahead and flip that blade over and try and focus so you can see there at the top, M4. And it's also multi-layered G10. This G10 being gray and black, and it's got a liner, it's like a G10 liner that's red, and it's got red barrel spacers. I was like, oh my gosh, that is a cool version of that knife. Absolutely. The fact that there was no more FRN on it just made me really excited and much more interested in it. This knife comes in at $191, which is, that's about in line with what Benchmade has been charging for stuff like this. I want to point out, though, that if you wanted to get a Griptilian from the custom shop in M4 and G10, almost exactly the same thing as the Freek, just the size of the Griptilian, you are going to pay more money for it. So when compared to the Griptilian, the Super Freek's a little bit better deal. It's probably still just a tad on the high end, but I'm going to give a lot of justifications for this knife, so stick around. If you're new to this channel, what I do is I do laid-back knife overviews, reviews. I give my opinions on things. I am not a professional. I'm a guy who has handled a lot of knives. has a lot of opinions and has a tripod and the power of the internet. So I'm just a normal guy. But if you enjoy, 4 to 5 uploads a week consistently, and you like knives, this might be the channel for you. Also, you can follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Anyways, let's talk about the anatomy of this knife. What we've got here is a very high saber ground drop point blade that may or may not be super accurate. That reminds me a lot of the Doug Ritter Griptilian blade, whereas the standard Griptilian drop point has much more of a flat. What you end up with for this blade is a blade that allows the steel to drop more readily towards the cutting edge from the flat. The stock thickness, I want to say, is probably about the same as the Griptilian. Yeah, 0.11, 0.12. But this knife has a more robust feel about it. You've got what appears to be kind of contoured G10 scales. It's got some texturing here. You've got, of course, DLC coated blade, thumb studs, and all the hardware, including the axis lock, making for actually a very smooth and very solid feeling deployment. The knife came perfectly centered. You can see there, right smack dab in the middle of the standoff. Really impressed with that. Actually, as far as fit and finish goes, I know I'm kind of jumping ahead here. As far as fit and finish goes, this particular knife has impressed me head and shoulders over a lot of the other Benchmades that I have handled. Very, very impressed with the fit and finish on this guy. Absolutely solid lockup, up, down, left, and right, no play. Easy, smooth disengagement, easy to deploy. The positioning of the thumb studs on this one, which are, I know I keep comparing it to the Griptilian, it's ever so slightly different, and there's more space to get your finger in there. So it's about the same deploying it this way, but in terms of the rear deployment or the reverse flick, the Freek is way easier to reverse flick. And I know that that's not really a functional thing, but a lot of people, fidget factor is a big deal, right? So a lot of people like to know about stuff like that. Already went over centering, fit and finish. Ergonomics on this guy, amazing. Love the handle. Absolutely love the handle shape. If you've got medium, large size hands, you're going to love this knife. I also love this little ramp that they've got going on for the blade. Instead of just a slow, gradual rise, it's more thumb shaped, and the jimping extends from the back of the, it's the cartridge liner that's got the jimping on there, and then it continues on up the blade for a fantastic lock-in position. This knife is very secure. You have texturing on the handles that's not going to tear up your pants, but provides additional grip on top of the ergonomics and jimping up top. So ergonomically, this is an absolute 10 out of 10. Perfect. Love it. Have zero complaints ergonomically. Like I said, price, carry philosophy on this guy. If you work outside, you have a job that requires, or asks a lot of your folding knife, you need something durable, but something that's not going to weigh your pants down. This is a great option. At 4.3 ounces, the amount of use you can get out of this knife, the amount of blade, is nothing short of exceptional. CPM M4 being incredibly high carbon, not a stainless steel, but has amazing toughness and amazing edge retention. Couple that with a DLC coating to protect it from corrosion resistance, and you have what a lot of people will call one of the best EDC steels out there. It's also the steel of choice for the competition cutting stuff, which I don't know a whole lot about, but basically M4 is incredibly durable. You can really beat on it, and it's going to hold an edge. The only downside is you got to make sure that you keep a light coat of oil on it after it's been exposed to moisture or anything close to moisture. And resharpening it is not going to be the most pleasant thing in the entire world. Speaking of weight, I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, how is it that this knife weighs 4.3 ounces with the size? Well, the trick here, the way that they're getting away with that, if I can zoom in again, is the cartridge liner. It's only about a 50% cartridge liner. You can see there the screw right here is just about where the cartridge liner ends. So there's not a lot of steel on the inside of the knife. Now, if this were an FRN handled knife, that would really bother me, but it's not. And before I knew exactly how durable G10 was, it probably would have bothered me then too. But I can't remember which video it was, but I talked about when I swapped out the G10 scales on my paramilitary 2 for Flytanium scales. And so I just had these 2 G10 scales kind of floating around that I was never going to use again. And for whatever reason, I decided to test the integrity of one of these scales. And I thought it would snap if I put enough torque on it. It didn't. It actually tried to flex to the point where it really wasn't going to do anything. So I thought, okay, I could force this until it goes, but let's see. I want to test it against like heat. So I actually took a lighter and I tried to melt it. And to my surprise, it took so long for this material to finally react to the extreme heat and start to melt. So with these, and these are no definitive tests. It's just some guy messing around with G10. But just with these simple tests, that was enough for me to be like, okay, G10 is literally 10 times more durable than I thought it was. I don't have a problem with a 50% cartridge liner. The construction of this and the thickness of the G10, I have nothing but absolute faith in this knife and the way that it's put together. Of course, the knife runs on phosphor bronze washers that are riding on the cartridge liner. The cartridge liner is attached to the frame. It just doesn't run all the way down to the base. This still isn't a knife that you can like squeeze or flex. There's no flex in the handles or anything like that. The materials used to keep everything held together are very, very durable, so I don't have a problem with that at all. I still don't like that Benchmade is using these itty-bitty little Torx head screws. I really hate those because anybody who wants to take their knife apart, it's like you have to take a deep breath every single time because if you mess one of those up, yeah, you can get another screw, but then, you mess one up and you don't have it in there and you have to worry about it. You got to wait for Benchmade to send you some. I don't like that. I think Benchmade should either include a couple more with each knife, just like 2 or 3 more, or they should use different size screw heads. These are like on every single Benchmade, and I don't like them. They're a problem. The pivot's fine. Excuse me, just one size bigger would be great. Same with the pocket clip screws. The other thing I don't like about this knife is this pocket clip that comes on it. I'm not going to say why, but I don't like the shape. We'll leave it at that. Any other clip is fine. I really don't like that pocket clip. But truthfully, other than that, there's really only one other thing that bugs me just a little bit. The position of the thumb stud and where the starting cutting edge is. You've got quite a bit of the cutting edge that creates a situation where the material can be brought in contact with the thumb stud while you're cutting. And given the fact that the primary choil is quite a ways from where that blade even starts, means that where the material is going to have to be when you start cutting to clear that thumb stud is right here. So look at the distance between this finger and this finger. That's where you're going to be on material, unless you figure out how to cut it exactly an angle, which is kind of awkward. That's where you got to be. That's the only other thing that bugs me. That's a nitpick. That's a little tiny nitpick. Those things and the price, that's about it. If none of those things bother you, which truthfully, those are nitpicks for me, but they don't even bother me that much, and you can justify the price, I say 100% absolutely go for this knife. This is an awesome knife. It's absolutely got the fidget factor with the axis lock. Plus, you gain the added benefit of this being much easier, despite me always messing that up while I'm talking about it, much easier to reverse flick than the Benchmade Griptilian. And honestly, it's kind of just a refreshing knife over the Benchmade Griptilian at the moment. I love the Griptilian, but geez, it's been around for so long. It's kind of nice to see this. It's almost an evolution of the Griptilian come out. You can see your similarities here. Plus, how cool is it to have gray and black G10 and a red liner? I heard somewhere that this was inspired by the colors of Deadpool. I don't know if that's true or not. But that's really cool, This knife aesthetically is very pleasing to me. It may not be your cup of tea, but to me, this is an awesome looking knife. The materials are top notch. The fit and finish is great on this one. I hope it's the same with all of these. Really, really cool. Absolutely love it. So yeah, final conclusion, I can absolutely recommend it. I'm having a lot of fun playing with this knife. And I think that it'll serve people really, really well. One thing we didn't do, for those of you who are still hanging on with me, we didn't do the paper cut test. Given the shape of the blade and the starting thickness. I'm going to assume that this thing is going to be a paper shredding machine. As always, the paper cut test is not a definitive cutting test. Your mileage is going to vary. Everybody cuts different types of materials on a day-to-day basis. They cut materials that are thicker, or wood, rubber, all that stuff. The cutting performance is going to vary. So this paper cut test is only designed to give you a minimal idea of the thinness behind the edge and how it cuts something as simple as paper. So actually, first, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a pass with the PM2, everybody's standard for a slicey knife. Okay, PM2 as usual, very slicey. And now I'm going to give this a go. Okay, so there's definitely more resistance than on a PM2. And Benchmade has that usual toothy edge that you get. But as you can see here, I'm kind of twisting it on purpose. I can actually still control the blade through the paper. The knife is slicing plenty well and is plenty thin behind the edge. But it's also ground in a way that makes me feel like it's more hard use oriented anyway. So it feels about 75 to 80% the slicing ability of the PM2. Let me see if I can just scoot those off. I always have a hard time picking up these pieces of paper off of the material that I've got here as the background. But anyways, that's going to be pretty much it here today, guys, for the Super Freek. Fantastic knife. I urge you to check it out. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, then please subscribe to my channel because there is definitely more coming. The Mandara is coming. It will be the very next video, I promise. Those of you waiting on the custom Mandara from Bag Knives, don't worry, it is coming up. So anyways, guys, thanks again for watching and have a great day.